Hello and welcome once again to Sandro Forte's Success Stream. Today, it is humbling to be able to introduce my guest. And the reason for that is that this young man, I can call him a young man because I'm now quite old, but this young man was the most sought after of all my podcast guests over the 3 years that I ran the Sandro Forte podcast, which you will see here on Spotify and iTunes. And we were absolutely inundated with requests for more information about this astonishing individual. So, of course, I had to bring him back for the Success Stream. So I'm not going to say very much more, apart from the fact that this young man, his name is Kian Saville, dare I say, I think we've become quite good friends. I really admire and look up to this young man. And at the tender age of 24, it would be fair to say Kian has probably dealt with more than most of us would in 64 years. And you're about to find out why. All I'm going to tell you is that since a very, very young, tender age, just a few years into his life, he was diagnosed with neurofibromatosis. Now, the reason I can say that is because I've told this story numerous times and I've now perfected the word. If you're not familiar with it, I'm sure Kian will describe it to you, but it is an horrific condition where tumors effectively attach themselves to the central nervous system. And of course, the prognosis, the treatment, and the condition that individuals who suffer from this very rare condition have to deal with, is fairly unthinkable for most of us. And yet this young man, Kian Saville, takes all of this in his stride. And not just that, he does a whole bunch of other things besides. So if you have joined us today looking for the answer to success, and I know success is different things to different people, Kian is about to give you a very different perspective to success. Kian, welcome, my friend. It's been far too long. I've been looking forward to having you back to chat to us. 92 countries around the world, 180 odd thousand people, no pressure. But nevertheless, it is a great, and I said humbling to be speaking to you again today.
Yeah, no, it's great to see you as well, Sandro. It's been a very long time, but yeah, I'm glad we can finally catch up and I could come back onto the Success Stream.
And you know what? Offline, I should let everyone know that Kian's like, yeah, I'm fighting a bit of an infection today, but hey, just one of those things. And every time we speak, there's always something that Kian's having to deal with. So Kian, for the uninitiated, and I was certainly in that category when we first met, tell us what neurofibromatosis is in detail, because I've probably not gone into enough. And when did your diagnosis, when was that first made, and what were the impacts on yourself and your family in the early part of your life? So just tell us a little bit about how it all began.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, you did a fairly good description, to be fair, of neurofibromatosis. There's two different types. I have type 2, which is more rare across the UK, especially in young individuals. The condition is usually found at the age of 40 or plus. It's not really something that younger aged people will have or see. And essentially what it is like you say, it grows kind of non-cancerous tumours or benign tumours along your central nervous system and your senses to impair them in some sort of way. There's no official diagnosis, there's no official kind of treatment plan. It's very rare. They're still looking at other ways that they can treat it. But essentially for me, in my circumstances, I have one tumour on the back of each eye nerve, one on the back of each hearing nerve, one centralised brain tumour that is inoperable, and a total of 8 tumours across my spinal cord, which to anyone is probably not the most ideal news that you will ever get in your life, but you just have to deal with it. It's not anything you can affect. I can't magically snap my fingers and then all of a sudden, bang, it's gone. It's just something that I've learned to deal with. I like to say, when I had it first diagnosed, when I was 11 years old, I had literally just about to start secondary school and start that big adventure. And before I know it, summer holidays come along, getting ready for secondary school, and all of a sudden I start having seizures. So just violent shaking, no control whatsoever. And a seizure usually occurs when you have multiple brain. So you have like little electric signals that go to your brain to tell it what to do. And it's when your brain gets too many of these signals that it almost overloads and it doesn't really know what to do, and it goes into a state of panic, which is very scary, especially for an 11-year-old at the time, just collapsed into four, losing total control, but still seeing what's going on around you, not being able to communicate. It's really not fun at all. And like I say, we were told by the NHS and the doctors, look, it's just a one-off, don't worry about it. And unfortunately, over that summer, there was more frequent, they got more violent, they got a lot more kind of severe. And it got to the point where I think I was having almost at one point 4 a day, possibly lasting over 5 minutes every single time. We actually got to the point where we almost nearly didn't call an ambulance every single time because we would just be told the same story. But eventually it got to the point where I literally just started the first week of secondary school, and I had a half an hour seizure in my sleep where my body just completely shut down. So breathing when heart rate was nothing, we were air ambulance to hospital, and it was decided, yeah, we need to get an MRI scan, we need to see what's going on. And it looked I remember the doctor quite clearly saying to me at the age of 11, you've got a big problem, and I kind of need to explain it to you in the best way possible. And it was basically, I had been diagnosed with neurofibromatosis type 2, and there was another tumour in my head that was causing the epilepsy. But at the age of 11, you're kind of a bit censored out from the big hard hitting conversations at that time. It's kind of, yes, you've got this, but actually you're 11 years old, so you don't really know. You know you're in hospital, you know something's wrong, but actually, is it affecting you massively? No. Should you really let it affect you? No, because what's the point of living? So that's kind of been my point of the whole journey. And like I say, I'm still, oh God, I've had 2 sets of brain surgeries. I've got a titanium plate in my head, following one of the other tumours that grew and damaged all my skull. But I'm on chemotherapy every 4 weeks, and that doesn't stop me. I still do a day-to-day life. I still work full-time, do a 48-hour week with the company that I work with now called Softcat, which I've got a great little support network around me. I still swim. I still coach. It really doesn't affect me. Like I say, I can't let it affect me because it's just not I'd rather get that 1% better each day rather than give in to what I've already got and give in and just give up and go, do you know what? There's no point. There's no point of fighting anymore. I don't get me wrong. There's been times in my life story that unfortunately that will happen. But it's just overcoming that barrier, and it's just going, right, come on then, let's go. Next challenge. What are you going to hit me with?
So Kian, going back, it's so inspiring to hear your story. And I talk about you wherever I go all around the world. Your name pops up in numerous conversations and presentations as well. Because I do find, it's not just your story being, about as unique as it's possible to get, because as you say, your condition is so rare. It's, everyone to a greater or lesser extent has a story to tell. But it is the way you approach it. Now, you said when you were 11, you were kind of desensitized to it and you just, take it all in your stride. But as you become older, you're 24, you're now much more consciously aware of the condition and its implications and prognosis, but you're still as philosophical as ever. And I just want to break down some of the things you then went on to say, which was you still swim, you work a 48-hour week. You undergo chemotherapy every 4 weeks. How do you deal, Kian, with now that you are much more consciously aware of all of these things? You know, we haven't got the 11-year-olds, you know, c'est la vie attitude. Now you're more consciously aware. How do you deal with how do you take it all in your stride? Because, you know, there's lots of people that write in, that contact us and say, you know, I've got this particular problem. And as I said earlier, this story gives us all an awful lot of perspective. But how do you deal with the road bumps? And you know, that's maybe being disrespectful, because your road bumps are bigger than most, but you have loads of them. So how do you deal with those obstacles in life as often and as philosophically as you do? Because that is the inspiring part of this story, I would say. How do you deal with it?
It's very difficult because, like I say, everyone's got their own different coping mechanisms of how they deal with it. To me, I can't let it affect me. I want to live as much as a normal life as possible, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that happens. Yes, we're going to have road bumps where I might have to go and have surgery, or I might need to go and do this, or like I say, I might be fighting an infection and I might be having the day off work, but it's not the power of that's it, just because you've got to do that. It's the power of, right, how am I going to come back harder? How am I going to make that 1% better each and every day? Because there was a video that I was watching not long ago, and a mate sent it to me and said, this is 100% you. And I remember watching the video and going, really? But actually, now the more that the challenges come and the more that I'm aware of my condition, I actually 100% agree with the video. There's a video where a guy's talking about success, and he's on a podcast as well, and he's like, I'm going to work, get 1% every day. Work, get 1% every, but I'm a bit better. Work. And then all of a sudden the domino hits, and then that's when the success falls. And it's that point of, if I can try and be the best that I can be, no matter what the circumstances, then that is my best way of overcoming challenges. If I just give up, everyone can give up. Everyone can say, right, that's it, game over. But actually, there's not many people that turn around and go, do you know what? See you later. This is going to be in my rearview mirror. I don't care. I will absolutely push for this, and I will absolutely go for it no matter what. And I know, like I say, from previous surgeries, I must have spent, especially on my first brace surgery, I must have had 8-9 months out the pool due to infection and other bits and bobs. And I never had more of a successful career than following that brain surgery. I literally, with my swimming, I just kept on working, got to go and compete at the British International meet, managed to travel all over the country, managed to qualify for more competitions, qualify for able-bodied nationals, regionals, and it was just like, and then all of a sudden we had another brain tumor and they needed to operate on that again. And I was like, I just recovered just before COVID, and we were all put into lockdown, and I was like, oh my God, well, for God's sake, I was just about to get in the pool, get back to training. Now I'm locked down. I can't do anything. I'm clinically vulnerable. But actually, it was like, right, stop making excuses. What are you going to do instead? And I ended up doing running. I ended up doing 2 workouts a day. I ended up doing everything in my power to push me to the absolute extremes, to make sure that actually when I got back, we were going back hard. We weren't going back easy. We were going to push ourselves. We were going to make ourselves better. We we're going to keep striving to try and get those goals. And like I say, if we get those goals, right, reassess. What's the next goal? What's the next challenge? What's the next barrier that we've got to do? How do we do it? What does that look like? But I think one of the main things I've also learned is also take a step back. Also just assess all the information in front of you. So like I say, when it comes to a doctor, they have to give you the worst case scenario every single time. It's part of their nature, it's part of their job. I don't blame them. I really do not. I can't imagine how much stress it must be to do that. But it's about taking a step back and going, right, okay, this is coming, but actually there's nothing that we can do at the moment. So actually, there's no point in me worrying about it, because if nothing's been said, I can't panic. Like I say, it makes a doctor even more nervous if you've got a patient that panics, because it causes a whole different array of emotion. And actually, there's no point of panicking when you actually don't know what's going on. You've got to let them do and then if they come to you and go, right, we need to do this, that's a better mindset. Then you can start to panic if you really need to panic. But actually just taking that step back, assessing the full picture and going, right, I can't really do anything about this. It's just going to move to the side for the moment, but I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing. And like I say, I've had that numerous times, like having spinal tumors, as probably most people on this podcast or this series will know. Having spinal tumors is never the good thing. It's never a thing. It can affect your mobility, do loads of stuff. And I remember going to an appointment about 6 months ago, and the doctor sit me down and going, look, one of them's grown a little bit. It's leaking spinal fluid, but I'm a bit worried about it. But I need to speak to the team and see what we can do. And And I got away from that appointment, and don't get me wrong, I was disheartened. I was like, oh God, here we go, another set of surgery, another set of this. But then I kind of, after that initial period, I was like, he hasn't given you any actions. He hasn't given you any next steps. He hasn't given you anything. So it can't be as bad as it actually is. Actually taking that step back, let me reevaluate and go, right, this is a thing. It is something that I should be aware of. But actually, I can keep moving forward no matter what happens. And then when all of a sudden they make their mind up about what they want to do, that's when I can go, pause, right, go back to that. So it's just kind of evaluating what your circumstances are, but also being able to push yourself to the boundaries that you know you can accomplish, but also the boundaries that are more realistic to what your targets are.
Yeah, I have to say, it's very rare. I I do enjoy asking lots of questions, and I enjoy speaking, but this is one occasion I just want to shut up and let you get on with it. And the other thing that I've been smiling kind of internally about is when you passed off this thing about, oh yeah, no, swimming and competing. You mentioned the word competing, but I should let everyone know that you don't just compete, you are an exceptionally good swimmer, to the point where when I first spoke with you a number of years ago, and got to know you, you told me that one of your ambitions is to swim in the Paralympic Games. So we are talking about an exceptionally gifted swimmer, just so everyone is aware. But in addition to that, in addition to being an exceptional swimmer, you also, I think I'm right in saying, help other people to learn to swim. So in addition to the day job, in addition to training for wherever it is you want to go with your swimming career, to also dealing with some family matters at the moment. Your dad's sick, I understand, as if the world couldn't throw anything more at you. You just, and the chemotherapy, so regular visits to hospital. You are giving back to your community and helping other people to grow and develop. And I find that absolutely breathtakingly inspirational. Why do you feel the need? And this is a sort of semi-rhetorical question, because I know the answer, Kian, but for everyone else's benefit, why on earth would somebody like you, however positive and philosophical you are, resist the temptation to feel sorry for yourself, and instead not just stand still, but kind of take another step forward and say, you know what, I want to give something back to those around me? I mean, where does that come from? I mean, is that in your nature? Is it nurture? Is it something that you feel is incumbent, is an obligation for all of us in society to try and give something back? I mean, where does that idea come from, that you try and help other people despite dealing with all of your other challenges?
Yeah, it's something that my mum and dad taught me from a very young age, of that they always wanted me to be, obviously because of all my conditions, like I say, I'm blind in my right eye from birth. I've got heart problems as well, and all the other complications. I'm essentially a medical walking disaster, but it works for some reason. It just works. But mum and dad always installed in me from a very early age of, we want you to be as normal as you are to the best of your ability. Like I say, you will never be like a normal kid, because most normal kids don't even see the inside of a hospital apart from when they're born or when they're older. That's about it. Don't really see an inside of a hospital. But they always said to me, look, we want you to have a normal upbringing. Never sent me to a specialist school. And one of the big things that my mum and dad always taught me was always help those around you, because you might not be struggling, but they might be struggling with their own problems. And actually just having that kind of, I've kind of been there and done that with my swimming career now. We had a bit of a moment with our swimming club about a year ago. One of our head coaches basically decided to walk out on us. And we got to a point where, unfortunately, our club were in a bit of a sticky situation. And we really needed people to step up. And at the point, me and my mate were doing our coaching courses to try and upskill ourselves. And we kind of said, right, we're in the middle of coaching courses, but actually we need to take the mantle. We need to literally pick it up and we need to roll with it. And in my own nature, I've always had that. I will always want to help people. I've always wanted to help people. It doesn't make a difference whether it's a small question at work where someone will go, well, where do I find this? Or to someone that's really struggling in terms of maybe one of my swimmers that's struggling with their GCSEs and the pressures of that, and swimming and competing and also having the whole thing. I've always been one of those helpful people. And I always like to try and help people overcome these challenges, because sometimes the answer is not as easy to get to, but it's about trying to get these people to overcome what they've got as a challenge. I like to say, I remember going to swim teaching. This is probably a good couple of years ago, when I used to go and help my sister, because she did her teaching qualifications before I did. And I remember seeing so many kids with either disabilities or special educational needs or anything. And I remember looking at them and going, why that teacher's paying no attention to them? That teacher's not even looking after their needs. They're not really even understanding how they can help. And I just remember thinking, I need to do something about this. It's just not, in my mind, it just didn't sit right. And I was just like, I need to do this. And I was like, right, okay. So I did all my teaching qualifications, did all my coaching qualifications. Obviously, have helped build our club back up. So we're now at the point where we had the biggest number of swimmers we've ever had at counties compete this year, which was amazing. We've expanded our coaching team from 3 coaches now to 5. We had a brilliant set of results. We've had more regional qualifiers than any year that we've previously had. And we're doing really, really well for a club where a year ago it was a bit touch and go, to now all of a sudden to a point where we're really doing well in terms of our results. We're starting to stand out on the map. And like I say, with the teaching stuff, I did so many years of helping and just having special educational need classes and disabilities, because in my mind, anyone should learn to swim, no matter what circumstance you're in. Like I say, we hear on the news numerous times about children that have had accidents in lakes or sea or anything. And actually, if it was part of the curriculum to keep swimming and actually get kids to swim, it wouldn't be a problem. But it is a big problem. And I remember every time we went swim teaching and there was a big news thing about a child has died or a child was injured during water, we would have to do water safety every single that week to try and install it into the kids. And like I say, it's very easy to do it to kids that are normal, but to kids with special educational needs and disabilities, actually a lot more difficult to try and understand actually what their comfort, what their ability is, and how that works. But like I say, I've had numerous kids, I've had numerous of them. I still see them around. I actually saw a little girl not long ago that I had when she was the age of 2. And she's now just completed her first 25 meters, unaided, no equipment, no nothing, and is now just moved up. I think she's now up maybe 4 or 5 stages from where I'd left her, and she's doing amazing. And I see the mom all the time, and she said, "Look, that's because of you. That's because you didn't give up. That's because you actually wanted to help them. You didn't want to just." You didn't want to just go, oh, that's my day job. Yeah, half an hour, fine, we'll just play some games. No, you actually taught them how to be safe around water, how to be confident in water. And like I say, the amount of parents we hear that the nice thing is the amount of parents we hear when they go on holiday and their kids go and they come back and go, I didn't even need to look after my child. They literally would just swim around the pool for the whole day. And they were just floating around and having a good time and stuff like that. And you just like, that's just, there's no better feeling, especially even coaching. Like when you see one of your kids get out of the pool and they're punching the air or they're slapping the water because they've done a new personal best, and you actually think, we're done good there. We're done really well. And I remember one of my kids, they were desperately chasing 100 front crawl for a county time. I think it was about last November, and they were a good 8-9 seconds out, and I was like, right, I was kind of managing their expectations. I was kind of saying that if we don't get it, we've always got next season. Don't worry about it. We'll work on it. And they were like, yeah, no, we'll go for it. We'll go for it. And I remember being at the side of the pool, kind of waiting for the race to start and just watching that. And then all of a sudden, the next thing is, I just see this whole different level of speed that I've never seen from her before. And I was just like, oh my God, she could do this here. She could absolutely do this. And I remember screaming at the top of my lungs, just telling her to go, go, go. And I had a stopwatch with me, and she did the first 50, and it was miles under a PB. And I was like, oh my God, this is doable. This is doable. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. And it came to the last 25. I remember just absolutely hammering it to get her to the wall. And then when seeing that time, and she was like 3 seconds under, and I was like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to deal with possibly some tears. And she got out of the pool and she had no idea the time, and she spoke to the timekeeper. And then the next thing I know, she just comes running up to me and gives me the biggest hug. And it's just like, wow, it's just that feeling that actually you're doing amazing with what you're being given. And like I say, some of these kids don't always get to the levels they want to be at, but actually just those little wins really make the difference.
Well, I reckon if I had Kian Saville stood next to me on the pool, I reckon I'd be capable of a personal best as well. Earlier you talked about, normal. I'm not sure I know what normal is. I think normal is whatever you believe it to be, right? You describe yourself as a walking medical disaster, which is, profound, amusing, and poignant, all rolled into one. Very quickly then, just to finish up, tell us about something I know you're very proud of, which is your career, your job, because that's something you didn't have last time we spoke. So just tell us briefly about the career, Kian, and what you do for a day job, as if everything else you did wasn't enough.
Yeah, no, so probably last April, not April just gone, but the April beforehand, I decided to leave my career at Webb Ellis, where I was designing sports kits for rugby, hockey, and swimming, and I wanted a bit of a challenge. And basically got to the point where I was like, I've always had a love for technology, always love it. I even love it using it in swimming because it gives me analytics data. Just love all of that. And I remember mom had basically worked at this company for a couple of years, and she was like, "You'd be amazing here." And I remember applying for the job, and I was like, "Oh, not really. I don't really want to be known as Andy's son. I want to be known as Kian Saville." I always had that kind of fear going into it. But this company called Softcat PLC, big shout out to that company. They are absolutely amazing. They are such a people first organization. They're a huge corporate entity within the technology reseller market, but they absolutely care about their people. We've got networks that I'm part of. So we've got a charity network called Love to Give. We've got an amazing network called the EDN network, so empowering neurodiversity and disability across the business. And I'm part of those networks. So I do loads of work with our organization to make it more inclusive, more accessible to people, help organize events to make them more accessible for multiple people within our organization. But my usual day-to-day role is actually technical services resourcing. So my official title is Services Engagement Resource Planner. So I work in a department where basically we take in all the sales queries. They will understand what their customer needs. We then get an email from them or a request, and it will be like, my customer wants to implement a server and wants to look at these vendors, this storage, and then I would basically align as any of our kind of team or professional services or architectural services or whoever to make that happen for the customer, and basically go back to the salesperson to go, right, this is the resource, this is what we need to do, this is the next step, and then essentially they will go off and they will work with those professional services and those consultants to build a better platform. But I know from when I first started, it was very black and white process. I'd like to say I've bent the rules very much so, that I've kind of inspired a new way of living in our department, in terms of that I've helped build new processes. Obviously, we have this amazing feature of artificial intelligence. So we've just been working on, or I've just been helping out with a few of our kind of AI requests, working with multiple different departments. It's just a brilliant company to work for. It's a real people first company, and they care about their employees. You're not just a number. Like I say, I've been off for the last couple of days. I can't tell you how many emails and messages I've had to say, I hope you're okay. If there's anything we can do, please let us know. My manager, Victoria, is absolutely amazing. Absolutely love the department that I work in. We all get on so well. And like I say, they give me my time off for chemo, but I also know that it's my responsibility that actually to get back into work and actually do my part and do my role, because if one of the cogs isn't turning, then something's not going right. So actually yes, they're giving my time off to go to chemo and hospital appointments and whatever, but I make sure I repay that by making sure that I'm doing the best job I'm doing every single time for them, and expanding out to kind of new areas of the business and how we can help improve their stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a really, really fulfilling job, and it's really nice to be in an industry that I've adored ever since I was younger. I've always had to have the latest iPad, or had to have the best setup or laptop or whatever. I like I say, learning all these new technologies is amazing. So yeah, big shout out to Softcat for being really, really good.
Yeah, big shout out to them and to your manager as well. I'm going to just let you ponder the one final line, the one final sentence, the inspirational message that you're going to leave, I hope, with all those listening today, Kian. So just a one-liner, a piece of advice from Kian Saville. And while you think about that, I'm just going to kind of summarize A word you used just before I asked you the last question, and you said something like, you went to the new job because you wanted a challenge, as if there were not enough challenges in your life. As I said, you're dealing with your dad being very sick right now, and our best wishes to him for a speedy recovery. You are nothing other than an inspiration to me. As I said, I carry your name wherever I go. I tell your story as best I can. You do it far more justice. But all of those out there that are dealing with any kind of problem, mental illness, some kind of physical challenge, financial pressures, hopefully Kian today has given you some perspective. And I think the best bit of advice I picked up today was that ability to just step to one side. I think you described it as, Kian, where you just analyze your options and then eventually realize that things can possibly be much more manageable than might first appear to be the case. And just that time out to assess all your options before you decide what action and how you're going to approach things. It really is very humbling and truly inspirational. A great lesson to all of us. So final words are with you, Kian. What would that one piece of advice be to anyone listening in terms of dealing with, and hopefully those listening never have to deal with everything that you've dealt with so brilliantly well. But if they did have any kind of challenge, or they just wanted to be more successful, whatever success was to them individually, what would that be? That one or two words, a line, a sentence, a short paragraph, be from you?
I think my biggest thing, and the biggest thing that I want people to take away from this, is never give up. Work towards that 1% each and every day, no matter what the challenge is. Work to be that 1% better, and eventually the dominoes will fall in the right direction, in the right path that will suit you. Your destiny isn't set in stone. You have control of what your destiny is. So never give up and always work towards that 1%.
Love that. That is fantastic. And now everyone listening from around the world knows the reason I talk about Kian Saville wherever I go. And I'm probably going to end up talking about him now for the next 3 years before we speak again. Although I very much hope, Kian, we get to see each other in person very soon. Always look forward to speaking to you. Always look forward to talking to you. And everyone now understands the reasons why. So Kian Saville, thank you so much for joining us today. You are a very busy man, spinning all these different plates, but you do it expertly well. And as I said, humbling and inspiring in equal measure. Very best wishes to you, as always, for all that you continue to do. That walking medical disaster is definitely a boy come good. So well done, kudos, and continue to do all the brilliant things that you do.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's been great to be here.